The sun here bleaches memory. It is a dry, unrelenting light that scours the landscape, revealing not softness, but a stark, ancient geometry. To understand Australia is to listen to the stories whispered not in the rustle of leaves, but in the slow grind of tectonic plates, the sigh of deserts expanding, and the relentless pulse of waves against a continent adrift. Its narrative is not a simple chronicle, it is a palimpsest written in sandstone, coral, and fire, where each layer speaks of isolation, adaptation, and a deep, resonant time. Our story begins not with the arrival of sails on the horizon, but some 55 million years ago, as the great southern supercontinent of Gondwana fragmented. In a divorce of geological scale, Australia tore itself away from Antarctica and began its long, lonely voyage north. This isolation is the first and most crucial chapter. It became a floating ark, a laboratory of evolution cut off from the rapid biological arms races of other landmasses. Here, the old world persisted. Marsupials, elsewhere outcompeted by placental mammals, became kings and architects of the ecology. The eucalyptus tree, a master of fire and arid soils, came to dominate the skies. It sent a pungent blue haze over the land. This separation forged a unique biotic signature, a collection of life forms that seemed dreamt from a different timeline: egg-laying mammals, towering flightless birds, forests of fern and cycad that whispered of the age of dinosaurs. The canvas upon which this life played out was forged by a different kind of violence. Australia is the lowest, flattest, and oldest of the continents. Its bones are worn and weary, ground down by eons of wind and water. In the west, the immense shield of the Yilgarn Craton, a piece of primordial Earth's crust, sits like a vast, silent plinth. It is a landscape of red dirt, scrub, and the occasional granite dome erupting from the plain, a bald pate of the world. From this ancient heart, the land rises gently, not into dramatic youthful peaks like the Alps or Himalayas, but into the endless, rumpled tableland of the Great Dividing Range. This range, more a weary slump of the continent's eastern shoulder than a dramatic upthrust, is the continent's rainmaker, its spine, and its watershed, catching the moist winds from the Pacific and deciding the fate of all lands to the west. For beyond the divide, the rainfall dwindles, and the continent gives way to its most dominant and defining feature, the outback. This is not a single desert but a vast, complex system of aridity. The red center is its throbbing heart, home to Uluru and Kata Judah. These are not mere rocks, they are the exposed tips of vast sedimentary folds, the last remnants of mountain ranges that have been eroded into the sky over 500 million years. Uluru is a solitary, awe-inspiring monolith, changing color from a dull brown to a fiery, transcendent red under the setting sun. Kata Judah, meaning many heads, is a clenched fist of domes, its labyrinthine valleys holding cool shadows and profound silence. They are cathedrals of geology, sacred to the Anangu people, for whom they are not landscapes but living chronicles of the dreaming. Further out, the deserts take on different characters. The Simpson Desert is a sea of parallel red sand ridges, marching in endless lines to a seemingly infinite horizon. The Tanami is a stony wilderness, gibber plains where the ground is a mosaic of dark, desert-varnished pebbles. The Great Sandy Desert lives up to its name, with dunes that shift and reform in the wind. This arid core, covering over 70% of the continent, is not empty. It is a landscape of profound subtlety, where life exists in the cracks, in the ephemeral lakes that bloom with wildflowers after a rare rain, in the secret waterholes known only to the indigenous custodians for millennia, and in the incredible adaptations of thorny devils and water-holding frogs. This dryness is counterpointed, with dramatic violence, by the ribbon of green that fringes the continent. The north, particularly the top end, is a land of monsoon. For months it bakes under a fierce sun, then, the wet season arrives with theatrical force. The skies crack open, flooding the savanna woodlands and transforming the rivers into roaring, muddy torrents. Kakadu National Park embodies this seasonal schizophrenia. Its wetlands become a spectacular nursery for millions of birds, its escarpments weep with waterfalls, and its floodplains teem with life. The Stone Country here holds one of the world's greatest galleries of Aboriginal rock art, a record of human engagement with this dramatic climate cycle stretching back tens of thousands of years. And then, there is the reef. Off the east coast, in the warm, shallow coral sea, lies the Great Barrier Reef. It is a living structure of such colossal scale it can be seen from space, a 2,300-kilometer-long mosaic of nearly 3,000 individual reefs and coral cays. It is the world's largest living thing, built by tiny polyps over millions of years. Its story is one of breathtaking biological exuberance, a kaleidoscopic underwater city of clownfish, turtles, manta rays, and sharks. Yet its narrative is now inextricably linked with a modern, human-induced chapter, the threat of warming seas and coral bleaching. The reef's vibrant colors can drain away under stress, leaving ghostly white skeletons, a stark visual metaphor for a changing planet. The human geography of Australia is a story written in stark contrast to this ancient natural one. For over 65,000 years, the first Australians lived as part of the geometric patterns of the land. They navigated by songlines, intricate mental maps that wove topography, mythology, and survival knowledge into epic narratives sung across the desert. Their fire stick farming sculpted the savannas and forests, creating a mosaic that encouraged biodiversity. Theirs was a deep map, one of intimate connection. This long, continuous chapter was violently interrupted just over 2 centuries ago with British colonization. The new settlers imposed a European geometry on a land that defied it. They drew straight lines on maps, creating vast rectangular states and territories, fencing the never-ending plains with thousands of kilometers of wire, and laying out grid-patterned towns in the dusty red heart. They brought sheep and cattle that compacted the fragile soils and hooves that eroded ancient ground cover. They dug. They found gold, iron, coal, opals, creating boomtowns that flickered like heat lightning in the desert, some fading to ghost towns, others evolving into modern-day minerals capitals like Kalgoorlie or the vast, robotic iron ore mines of the Pilbara. This clash of geometries created a nation defined by its coastline. The Fertile Crescent along the eastern and southeastern seaboard, from Cairns down to Adelaide, became home to over 85% of the population. Here, the great modern cities rose. Sydney, with its iconic operatic shell nestled in a breathtaking harbor, a city that tumbles over sandstone headlands. Melbourne, a more orderly grid of parks and laneways built on a temperate river plain. Brisbane, a subtropical sprawl along a meandering river. These coastal citadels, with their cosmopolitan air and vibrant cultures, often feel a world apart from the inland. They look outward, across the oceans, to Asia and the wider world, their skylines punctuated by cranes, their economies tied to global flows of capital and ideas. Between these two Australias, the densely populated, cosmopolitan coast, and the vast, sparse interior, lies a psychological as well as a physical divide. It is called the tyranny of distance, a phrase that speaks to the sheer logistical challenge of continent scale, and the cultural gap between the urban majority and those in the bush. The outback town, with its single pub, its wide, dusty main street, and its profound silence at night, is a different universe from the bustling CBD of Melbourne. Yet, it is in these inland spaces that the mythic heart of the nation is often said to beat, the land of the stoic stockman, the resilient miner, the indigenous community maintaining ancient law. Water, or the lack of it, is the constant thread in this human story. The Great Artesian Basin, a vast underground sea beneath the eastern interior, was tapped to allow pastoralism to push into the arid lands. The mighty Murray-Darling River system, the nation's food bowl, is a perpetual source of political contention, its waters fought over by irrigators, environmentalists, and states. In the cities, the sight of a suburban tank or a glistening desalination plant speaks of an acute awareness of water's preciousness. Today, Australia's geographic story is entering a new, uncertain chapter defined by climate. The continent has always been one of drought and flooding rains, as poet Dorothea Mackellar famously noted, but the rhythm is becoming more erratic, more extreme. Bushfires, a natural part of the ecosystem, are becoming more ferocious and frequent, consuming with apocalyptic fury the forests and fringes of cities. The Great Coral Reef is under existential threat. The slow, relentless rise of sea levels nibbles at the coastline upon which the nation has built its life. The ancient, stable geography is being stressed by a new, global force. To travel through Australia is to move through deep time and radical contrast. You can stand in a silent desert under a blanket of stars so thick it feels tangible, and feel the immense, humbling age of the earth. The next day, you can be amidst the thrum of a global city, sipping coffee in a laneway covered in street art. You can dive in a warm, teeming sea, and then fly for hours over a rust-red emptiness etched with the dry veins of long-dead rivers. Ultimately, the story of Australia's geographics is a story of resilience and adaptation, etched into the land itself. It is the story of a continent that drifted into isolation and cultivated the unique in the bizarre. It is the story of the world's oldest living culture, reading the geometry of the land as a sacred text. It is the story of a modern nation built on a borrowed European template, struggling to fit itself to an ancient, demanding, and often unforgiving physical reality. And it is the story of a place now facing a future where its geographic extremes, the fire, the flood, the drought, the fragile coastal beauty, are being amplified by a warming world. The sun still bleaches, the deserts still spread, and the waves still beat against the shore, but the story they tell is now accelerating, its next lines being written in the smoke of megafires and the warming acidity of the sea.